Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dahle, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to up-level your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Welcome back to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I'm Carrie Dahle, your host. This week, I want to take you back to August when Tressa Yonekawa and I hosted Thrive 35. Hit your goals in 35 days. During that month, we met with the most beautiful, motivated women, and we spent time teaching them how they could achieve their goals. And we spent time teaching them how they could achieve their goals in just 35 days. And part of that process, we discussed the importance of changing that negative narrative to a positive narrative. So I've taken that 20-minute or so segment of Thrive 35 and put it together for you all today. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you get something out of it. And I hope that you too can turn your negative into a positive. Tonight, I really want to focus on changing your negative energy to positive energy. Because like I've said a million times, I feel like positive energy is what manifests things and what draws people to you and draws all the good things that you're trying to do to you. And so anyways, I want to really work on that. The first part of that is can be a little scary because you've got to dig into yourself a little bit and you've got to reflect on your life and what triggers you and your negativity and why and where it's coming from. So I just want to read this, So does the prospect of this adventure spark excitement or perhaps a hint of apprehension? Delving into our personal histories, even the challenging chapters may evoke a mix of emotions. Yes, it's precisely within these intricate layers that we uncover the key to unlocking our bright future. How do we gracefully embrace and heal from past wounds, trauma, and insecurities? How can we rewrite the script, casting ourselves as resilient victors rather than the captives in our own histories? These are the questions that we'll explore together and work on turning our negative energy to positive energy. Let's dive in, right? How does negativity show up in you physically? Is it fatigue, aches and pains, weight gain, weight loss, nausea, dizziness, headaches? How does it show up for you guys?
Avoidance.
What about you, Jen?
This is going to take some work because I really don't connect with any of these.
So for me, when I'm in a bad space, like I don't eat, weight loss happens. It spirals that way. Or if I'm in a space where I feel really uncomfortable, I get sick to my stomach. As a little girl, that happened a lot. For whatever reason, my parents divorced when I was little, and for whatever reason, whenever I go to my dad's house, I would always be sick to my stomach. And I'm not blaming, in fact, we have a great relationship now, but as a little girl, it was like the stress. It was the negativity that was happening. It was the constant, my mom nagging on and being mean about my dad the whole time. And so all of this negativity would just come out that way. So I'm sure it's there. You just need to find it maybe. What do you think, Tressa?
I'm curious how that does manifest for you, Jen. What does happen or doesn't happen?
I mean, I guess I think it has to be really bad. And then it is like racing heart. I've experienced a panic attack a couple of times, but it's been, and it kind of came out of nowhere and wasn't even aware that there was negativity. So I think that's probably part of it because I am such a positive person.
You are.
That I really am like, well, I don't experience negative emotion very often. But that could also be because I don't let myself go to a negative place.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's avoidance. avoiding the negative.
Maybe, but if it
Mhm.
works for you, it can be a tool, if it's not harming.
Yeah. And I don't feel like it is, except that maybe this panic attack that I did have a couple of years ago was kind of a culmination of a lot of things. And that's the way it presented itself.
Yeah. So yeah, there are typically manifestations for us. And if there are none, I'd be really curious.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Well, how about emotionally? Where does it come out there? For me, it's definitely low self-esteem. That's where emotionally it will come out, or anxiety. In fact, I was texting Tressa last night because I had somebody who connected to me because of seeing me through her, and he is brilliant and quite an author and quite intimidating in that sense to me. and he wanted to be on my podcast, and he wanted to have a conversation and be interviewed. And I can't tell you, like, the anxiety, and it was so stupid because it always, I mean, I had to, well, we'll get there, but I had to get to my root of that, which is this fear of I'm not enough, which it comes up and it rears its head. So I think that's my point of trying to identify at least the things that do come out in you physically and emotionally and behaviorally that you can see in yourself and go, oh, there's that thing.
I do notice that I get really like, I want like the house really clean, or like almost not OCD, but like I definitely when I get stressed, my environment impacts how I feel. And so I really, having the house in order makes me feel better about whatever stress it is. So, which is an interesting thing, because I wasn't that way necessarily growing up. But as I've gotten older, and probably it's control of environment, because, I have no control over anything.
I love that. I do that too.
Me too.
Is there what about behaviorally? Is there anything you saw there that comes out in you?
I mean, I definitely get shorter, like less, definitely. And I don't necessarily want to talk to people, but yeah, like an avoidance, like I just really would just rather do my own thing.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, I know it bounces back up to the emotional, but irritability. And it's usually like centered, it's because I'm not happy with something that I've done or am doing, and then I'll get irritable with other people.
This one might be a little hard for you, Jen, because if you're kind of not sure where your most negative feeling is, but the one thing that really, really upsets you, like when you look at that list and you're like, what is the one thing that really bothers me? For me, that is the low self-esteem. That is the most negative feeling that really triggers me, I guess, is the best way to say that. So once you can find that, and then you need to turn it into a statement as to your negative narrative, I guess, is a way to say that. So that you can identify it when it rears its head, and then, push it aside, deal with it, handle it, move along. For me, so the self-esteem leads to that I am not enough. And that's my negative narrative every single time in everything. And I can say things like, well, I don't feel smart enough, like today, or like last night. I mean, I felt plenty smart actually talking to him today, but in the preemptive, like working up to it, I was like, oh my gosh, am I like intelligent enough to be even talking to him? Do I have enough? Like, why is he even wanting to talk to me? Like all these things. And it all came down to that. Am I enough?
So I'm curious, Carrie, because you were fretting, I'm going to say fretting.
Yeah.
And the outcome was that you met somebody that was another human being that you got along with great.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely look at things differently, and and the conversation was funny in times, but yeah, it was exactly what it was supposed to be, right? But it took me having to like chat with you a little bit and get in my head a little bit and be like, Carrie, what is going on? Like, why are you doing this? This is an opportunity, and you're you're letting that I'm not enough phrase get in the way when I can do it. So Libby, do any of the negativity, do any of those resonate with you so much that you're like, that's the thing?
Probably, like, definitely social withdrawal. Like, if I just am struggling, like, I don't want to necessarily deal with more people. And I know that sounds really bad, especially since that's what I do for a living, is help people. Until I can get my own self square, I don't want to add other people's drama or an energy or other stuff. And then I definitely, when I get super like emotional, like mentally fatigued, I sleep.
So what is it that makes you feel that way? Like what?
I'm in a point in my career where I'm constantly putting myself out in a position where I'm uncomfortable. So, and I am scrambling all the time. I don't necessarily like public speaking. I mean, I flunked it in high school, and I now have to public speak almost every week, and I hate it. And so I really scramble if I'm not prepared, and that is, I think, a huge stressor for me. So in my networking group, I co-chair an educational spotlight every week for small business owners. And so I have to research all these topics and learn them every week to present them, which is very stressful for me, I feel like.
Listening to you, it sounds like you feel like you failed at it in the past. You have a fear of failing at it again now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the negative I'm hearing is fear of failure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So how can you change that narrative? How can you change that to?
So I have the tools to present any topic given to me successfully or intelligently, I guess would be a better word.
Your fear, Libby, of not sounding intelligent? Or what is the fear?
Well, I'll be honest, like I went to Chautauqua for private school, and I never, honestly, I was so behind in reading in elementary school and middle school. I didn't really like to read until my 30s. Mm-hmm. Even though I was a broker, like if I had to sit down and read a book, there'd be no way. And not because I couldn't, I just really didn't enjoy it until my 30s. And people honestly thought I was just, and I wouldn't say slow because I don't have a learning disability. I didn't like school. Like, I don't know. I mean, Carrie's known me pretty much my whole life. I was not an academic by any means. And I still got A's. It's just not I'm definitely was never the smart kid. Let's put it that way.
By the way
but I in my older life as a broker before this and now, like I did acquisitions and wrote financial reports. So I love research. And I love the medical field. So I have learned to be overly prepared. And so that makes me feel comfortable.
Interesting. So the ways that we measure intelligence in a traditional academic system serves not the majority of human beings, I think.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting place for us to take on markers of that last our whole lives, mm-hmm. if we let them. But because you see it, you can dissect it a little bit, like you just did, and open it up and be like, yeah, I got A's. I'm a smart human. School was not the most beneficial way for me to learn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised. Honestly, if I could have skipped college my husband made me graduate. Like, he's like, you will finish. But I just didn't see the point in it. I don't know. Because people are successful in their careers without a college education. Now, I'm happy I did it. I'm happy I have it. But I really I have struggled my whole life with school, which is why I don't go get a master's. Yeah. Or any, like I like learning, but the whole pressure of it makes me shut down, I think.
That's huge. Is there because you're able to learn. It's just not by reading necessarily. It's not your chosen way, although you can.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, is this any kind of block to the goal that you're working on this month?
No, not
Okay.
necessarily. I mean, failure always is I mean, of course, failure is a block. So, and
Failure or potential failure?
potential failure.
Okay. So how do you identify potential failure? That, to me, that's like you're reaching into the future for something that hasn't happened yet. Is that
Right?
how you identify it? Okay.
Yeah.
So just stop that, Libby.
That's so easy. But that kind of leads.
When you realize people can just say no, then it's okay. Like this is my 3rd year of business, and I've gotten really comfortable with it, and you just move on. It doesn't impact me the way it did the first, year.
It's definitely a skill.
I was just going to say, I mean, you're talking about these negative emotions, but they're directly related to something that you're putting yourself out there. And maybe I don't have negative emotions because I'm just living in this safe space, like I could volunteer to be the one that gets up and talks in front of people, but I'm like, no, thank you, but you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's interesting because, well, both things are very interesting. All of this is interesting, but it kind of leads to the next part of how is this biggest narrative, negative narrative affecting your life? And when you envision your best life, how does that thing get in your way? And while Jen, you aren't putting yourself out there, you ultimately want to. So there is, right? So there is something. Okay. So Jen, if you are going to go out there and teach girls and women that they are worthy, you are going to have to get up and speak.
Right.
And what would hold you back from doing that? Just putting yourself out there?
Potential failure. Yeah. Being judged.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because I find myself I'm not a very judgmental person. I really, but I definitely have that fear.
So I think you have something that you can find that really will be the one trigger you'll notice, especially as you're moving into this. I know like you were afraid last week about social media. Like you were afraid to put, see? So I guess the point is just to identify it and really narrow it down to what it is. I mean, because I can say I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, all these things, but really it just comes down to I'm not enough. And that's just my one little thing. And I have to work daily actually on it. So
have you seen, I'm just curious, like, because you have been working daily, have you seen improvement? Like when this guy, you had to have a conversation with him, and what would the Carrie of 6 months ago said?
I wouldn't have done it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I would have come up with an excuse to push it off a little bit. I would have really worried about it. I would have stuttered over my words. I would have been so nervous. Like I would have been shaking, and I wasn't. And, just getting a little affirmation from Tressa that I was seen and feeling a certain way, and that because she knew, she's met with him before too. That helped. And then Jeff actually made me more nervous because he kind of got him in a different way. And he's like, you should ask this and you should ask that. And I'm like, no, that's like your questions. These are my questions. So yeah, the Carrie 6 months ago I wouldn't have been able to do it.
What? Right. Will you say that again? Because I'm like, what?
Carrie 6 months ago wouldn't have been able to do it.
What did you shift?
Just my mindset and recognizing that I am enough, and that is not true. Even though it's a story I've told myself my whole life, it is not true.
And the brain needs proof. So Libby, you're calling people and having it's a numbers game. So Will we ever be 90% successful with sales calls? Probably not. Will we be 1 to 10% successful? Much more likely. And as you're calling and as you have those successes and can start letting go of the people who weren't right for you or you weren't right for them, it tells our brain that you're going to survive. So every no that you don't burst into flames, or disappear in some way is reinforcement to your brain and to what I call the Mean Girls Club in my head. You might have another word for it. Ego, whatever that is, that wants to keep us safe. Every time you survive something that's hard, you win because your brain goes, oh, we're okay. All right. And so it's important for us to get uncomfortable so we can grow. And it's been said a million times by a million different people. We have to put ourselves in positions to get uncomfortable. And that might be driving a different way to the grocery store and not using Google Maps. It can be something like that. It can be noticing which hand you use to open the door and changing to a different hand. Like, we just need to give the impulse that we're doing something different that's unfamiliar. It's one of the reasons why in yoga, when they say, hands above your head, like reaching up, palms touching and pointing fingers, and now switch the way your thumbs are. And it's like weird. So imagine doing that on a stage or in a bigger place or a place where you can fail, where it can be so uncomfortable that you seize up, that like, what happens then? And having just come from doing some speaking in LA with Steve Sims, I will tell you that when that happened to people, and it's happened to me before, when that has happened, and what I witnessed was the beauty of people taking a few breaths and continuing on. And that's in a big place in front of people. So, what is the worst thing that can happen? And is that something that's preventing you from getting your goals, or has contributed to the pattern of you not doing the thing or the things? And if it is, look it in the eyes and go, yeah, I'm going to walk on you this time, and we're going to see what happens.
Thank you again for listening to the Thrive Mindset podcast. I hope today that you learned something. I hope that you were motivated, inspired. I hope that it just sends you away with something to think about. And mostly, I hope that you are able to start identifying those negatives in your life and changing them into something positive, because that switch makes a massive difference. And again, if you like the podcast, if you got anything out of it, I just hope that you share, like, subscribe, all the things, and comment. Let me know what you want to hear, what's going on in your lives. And above all else, remember that I believe in you, and you can manifest the life of your dreams.